At least I waited till before we start recording to say that. Now no one will have to now.
Yeah. I thought
Three of us.
I thought your shirt was a Spider-Man shirt. I was about to give you a compliment on it. I thought highly of it, but now I don't because it's not Spider-Man.
Oh man, that Halloween picture. I went as Peter Parker one time as a Halloween. No, it wasn't Halloween. It was we were going to go see the Avengers, and some of my friends like decked out, but I got cheap and I dressed up as Peter Parker with a Spider-Man shirt underneath a hoodie.
You know, you can pull off being a Peter Parker. No lie.
Okay.
Yeah, you can pull it off. Yeah, for the study, man, I didn't get to. I already know the passage. You know how it is. Sometimes you already know the passages that you're studying. So like you're studying the same stuff over again. So you're kind of going through the motion, kind of, but not really. But you're trying to look for like more stuff like that you haven't learned before with the passage. It's just, yeah, I didn't get to do all that really. Like I did a little bit, but not really. Not like I really wanted to. And then like my outlines, I have so much notes on 1 Corinthians 13, so I can't depend on my outlines. I just have to talk through it. So it's going to be a little different than what our study normally is, at least from my vantage point, for me talking.
Oh.
Yeah. But I'm so excited, man, to like finish this off. I just want more times talking about this. I'm just going to have to do it on my YouTube channel. Like I was trying to text you. I don't know if the message came across right, you know, through text message. You know how that is sometimes. I feel like you could do a whole study on just focusing on love is kind. Like I really want to just throw out all examples on like when love is kind, when love is patient, you know, when does love beareth all things, just anything like that. Just focus on examples. It could have been like from the book of Corinthians, from the Corinthians not doing it, or from them doing it, or Jesus him doing it, you know, or Paul, like, you know, but just using examples of any Christian doing stuff like that in marriage and stuff like that, or in just regular relationships. But I know that's gonna take time, man. That's weeks. You could do weeks on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm ready to go when you are, man.
All right. Yeah, I'm ready too.
Are you eating too?
I'm just eating some tortilla chips with guacamole. And I'm on the Daniel fast, and it's like all the time.
Okay. So with the Daniel fast, what are you focusing on eating?
Well, there's different ways you can do the Daniel fast. So of course, like everyone does no meat, but I'm also cutting out bread, animal products like milk and yogurt and eggs. I'll eat like whole wheat pasta or whole wheat grain, stuff like that. So I guess it's like more vegan than anything.
Maya's feeling for you. When you said eggs, she just lost it after that.
Oh, man. But yeah, Yao loves eggs. Like Yao's also doing the Daniel fast, but she lets herself eat like, milk and eggs and stuff like that, or white rice. But yeah, she loves her some white rice and eggs. Like I don't think she could go without that.
Maya can't go without cheese. That's hard. That's real hard. All right, come on.
So how you want to start this off? You want to do it one by one, like each virtue?
No, you know what? Do you want to just start with 8 through 13 and finish it out, and then come back to 4 through 7, or just go ahead and start off with all the virtues?
We could do that, and if we if we go back to 4 through 7, maybe you can edit and just put 4 through 7 before everything else.
Okay. I mean, if you want to go in order, let's go ahead and do it. I'll just go ahead and do it. I just know, like, for 4 through 8, I'm not going to say everything I really want to say. So I'm just going to summarize everything for me. So, yeah, let's go ahead and go 4 through 8. I just want to give 8 through 13 its due time for this study. Because I know you study for that, right? 8 through 13, that's what you focus on?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and do 8 through 13.
Okay.
All right. So, you want to read?
You said 8 through 13?
Yeah.
Love never fails. Everyone who prophesies will stop, and unknown languages will no longer be spoken. All that we know will be forgotten. We don't know everything, and our prophecies are not complete. But what is perfect will someday appear, and what isn't perfect will then disappear. When we were children, we thought and reasoned as children do. But when we grew up, we quit our childish ways. Now, all we can see of God is like a cloudy picture in a mirror. Later, we will see Him face to face. We don't know everything, but then we will, just as God completely understands us. For now, there are faith, hope, and love. But of these three, the greatest is love.
I love how that starts out though. Love never fails. That's just a great way to lay down a foundation.
Yeah.
We live in a broken world. We can think of so many things that fail. Even like family and friends that we love or hold close to our heart. Like we know that they fail. They'll fail us, and that's like not their fault. Like everyone is a broken creation because of the fall. But to know that love never fails. So like go into all these things like prophecies will cease, tongues will be stilled, and knowledge will pass away. It's like talking about all these imperfections of the world that just don't hold a candle to how powerful love is going to last. Like it's everlasting, it never fails. And I just like that that is how Paul starts off this section.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing people say is like, I fell out of love. Like, I don't love them anymore. Like, just like little stuff like that. And honestly, this all relates to everything Paul is saying. Like, just saying that alone. Like, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought like a child before I was a child. But, when I became a man, I had to put away childish things. That is powerful because, like, as a Christian, you're claiming to be mature, right? In the faith, you're claiming you know God. Like if you know God, you don't fall out of love. Love's more than it's more than a feeling, an emotion. It's action, right? It's just something. It's a choice, a commitment. That's love, dedication. Like so, like you don't just do stuff because you're feeling like doing it, right? Love bears all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things. So like no matter what everybody else does, love never fails. Like it's always there. You can lean on love, right? Especially for Christians, even when you don't want to love, you love anyways because love never fails. Like, yeah. So were you gonna say something to that?
Just really fast. Yeah. I think that's why we have such a hard time around the concept of unconditional love, of God like always loving us or being in the position to always love others because we are incapable of, as creations as we are now, we're incapable of loving something without limits. So like we can't wrap our head around that. So that just makes it more special that God is able to love us unconditionally, but also makes it a lot harder for us to keep loving something.
Right. Yeah. And there's something else too. Like we know that Corinthians and even believers today, we puff up speaking in tongues, right? We even puff up preachers, so prophecies, so people who can prophesy and teach the Bible. But not only that, prophecy is more like, tell about the future. So like you got so many preachers like saying, not a lot, but some preachers be like, Jesus is coming in 2000, the year 2000, or Jesus is coming in the year 2020. Like and he's coming on this date. And then when they miss it, some pastor did that recently. I don't know who it was. But they did it recently saying that Jesus was coming. And then they said, forgive me, I was wrong. But I'm still a prophet. And there's a verse that says if a prophet says that they make a false prophecy and it doesn't come to pass, they're not a prophet. So you should stone them. Like this is scripture verse, just like in Deuteronomy. So like that's what we should have did to him, but like it's a different time, right? So but it literally says they're not a prophet. Don't listen to them no more. They lost their ranking. But he said, like, people still like, man, people make mistakes. I made a mistake. So, oh, well, but like, no. But anyways, like prophecy, like people elevate that.
Stuff. You can't use those words so nonchalantly, but that's a total topic.
Right. But anyways, like the knowledge of the world, speaking in tongues, prophecy, just any gift, right now that we use, it's all for now in this season of life. And that goes back to 1 Corinthians 7, where Paul was saying, like he said, the time is short and we must do everything while we can right now here on this earth, because everything's temporary here. Your marriage is temporary, your being single's temporary, being in relationships temporary. Like all this stuff is temporary. And we look at those things as like it's everlasting, like they're gonna be here forever, but they're not. Everything's for a season on this earth. Ministering the gospel is for a season. So everything, the way that the world operates, for a season. And so people elevate these things like, they're gonna last forever, but all this stuff's gonna vanish away. So like Paul was letting the Corinthians know, you got to know what matters the most. Y'all are elevating spiritual gifts and saying like these things are the end all be all. I'm the baddest because I can prophesy, I can speak in tongues, I can do do miracles and all this stuff. But like Paul is like, that's nice, that's solid, but love never fails. Love is the greatest gift, like that goes back to 1 Corinthians 12:31. Like, what does it say? Cover earnestly the best gifts, but I show unto you a more excellent way. Like the more excellent way is love, because at the end of the day, we're gonna be loving each other in heaven. We're gonna be loving each other in glory, and God is love. So that's all that's gonna be there. So like prophecy, what would be the reason for prophecy? What would be the reason for speaking in tongues? If we all can understand each other and have all the knowledge, like we're not gonna have all of God's knowledge. Obviously, we're still gonna be learning from Him, but like we'll still have way more knowledge than we got now. Like I can only imagine all like the knowledge of science we will have. Like what will be the science of heaven? What would be the mathematics of heaven? Like what would be like the space-time quintillion? I don't know, just space stuff. Like I don't know. Like like that's what Paul's talking about in the next verse too. Like for we know in part and we prophesy in part. Like we only know so much here on this earth. Like the ball game's going to change in glory. And even in glory, we'll know way more about what was going on in earth and our time here and everything than we do now. So like we only know in part. So people who think that they know everything, they got it all together, they got it all figured out. Their gift's the best gift ever. Like, just that pride. Like Paul's like, you need to slow your roll because everybody only knows in part. So people who argue like saying like this is I just have how we have debates as Christians and as believers, even with atheists and unbelievers and stuff. Like we debate about stuff, and it's funny like with politics too. This is a great example. Like the Democrats and Republicans, they all are on a certain, they have certain beliefs, right? And like, and when you think about it and you put it all together, it's all half truths. Like like because one side believes one thing, another side believes one thing, but they're both right to an extent, and they're both wrong to an extent because it's not the whole picture. Like that's what Paul's getting at, So I'll wait to say everything else I'm saying. Like, but did you have anything else? Because I kind of want to go back to verse 8 a little bit before I go there.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just gonna like add a little more to what you're saying. Like I like how love is multifaceted as well. You were saying like Christians, even if we don't want to love, we like keep loving, but like there are so many different versions of love. Like with marriage, like of course you have that passionate love at the beginning, which is great, but it's hard to keep that alive for a long time. Not to say you will fall out of love with somebody, but eventually you have to have a loving, what Ravi Zacharias called a loving kindness.
Mm-hmm.
You develop this commitment towards someone. You make a decision to love somebody, which lots of people think like love is just a pure feeling, but feelings are so transient. Like but there is such a love as like, of course there's different Greek versions of love as well. There's like the unconditional love of God, agape, and then there's like brotherly love, philia or phila. But there's like eventually like we integrate love into different parts of our life, in which that way we're always loving something. We don't necessarily have to have that warm fuzzy feeling of love inside all the time, but we make that conscious decision to love one another because that's what God calls us to do, and that's what Paul is like calling people to do as well, because it's something that's everlasting.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, something else I want to say too. It's not in my notes, and I kind of gotta like just try to like say it as best as possible. But like, you know how a lot of Christians believe that speaking in tongues has ceased already, But
Yeah.
in this verse, they wouldn't say prophecy ceased, and they wouldn't say knowledge ceased. So why would Paul use those three together? And then people just believe tongues have ceased. So like nobody speaks in tongues right now, at all. You know. So like that's just something to throw out there. Like so that's just a but like yeah, all of them are the same because that's why you can't like separate the gifts like that. They're all the same. They're all here for this time. Like there's stuff that the apostles did that we can't do. Obviously, yes. Like, but I mean, come on. Like some gifts are just all gifts are necessary and needed. So like just the ones right here, they're all the same. Like so that's why we can't elevate and make some gifts better than others and stuff like that, man. And then not put too much emphasis on it. That's the biggest thing. And this is why Paul just mentioned it here. Like, they all gonna pass away. They're not that valuable as you think they are. Like, yeah, they're important and very valuable, but like love, that's what's really important. So like, yeah, you want to argue about these topics and argue about and debate about this. That's the whole point he's trying to say. But like, are you loving your neighbor? Like love never fails. So like for you to like let love fall in that situation, what does that say about you? Like the love of God's not in you. So no matter what people think, no matter what they do, no matter what they do with the gifts or anything, no matter where they are on the spectrum, love never fails, man. So we should always love. But all right, I'm done with that now. I'm gonna go to like verse 9 on out. But yeah, so with verse 9, man, this stuff, this is my favorite part of 1 Corinthians 13. I haven't read my notes in a while because like it gets me so amped up, man. Like this just all this part, but yeah, man. For we know in part, man, like, in my notes I had, children's knowledge is limited, right? Like when you're a child, you don't know what this world has to offer. Like as a teenager, you're like, man, I can't wait to be an adult. Now you're an adult and you're like, man, I can't wait. Man, I wish I was a kid again. Like, like I would do anything to go back to my childhood. You know what I'm saying? And then also like kids are selfish. Like, they only think about themselves. So like when their parents say they can't do something, it's for a good reason. It should be, right? Like, but we don't know. Like, so adults know way more than we do. Parents know way more. So parents are selfish. At least, they shouldn't be, right? So, but yeah, like that's all it is. But parents have all the knowledge in the world. So God's our parents. He's giving us everything we need, all the knowledge we need. So like all we can do is trust him. He knows it all. Like we don't know nothing. So for a believer to think that they have all the knowledge in the world and think they know everything, Paul's humble to them real good, man. Like, because that's how the Corinthians thought, man. Knowledge puffeth up, but love edifies. So like man, I just think about all the ways that how they were puffed up and how prideful and arrogant they were. They thought because they followed Paul or Apollos, like they were holier than everybody else, or because they have certain spiritual gift, they were better than everybody else. Like you got the knowledge, okay, but what about the love? Like we only know in part. So yeah. And then also like, we're all oh, go ahead. You want to say something?
No, I was just thinking off that. Yeah, I like how Paul is trying to show that spiritual gifts are meaningful only in like a community where loving others like is dominating. Like if it's for self-interest, then the gifts aren't going to be worth anything.
Right.
And it's like it's only going to be temporary or in part. And as it says, like when completeness comes, when a whole community comes together, then the parts disappear. So it's only like the holy love, not the gifts themselves, that are essential evidence of like a spirit-filled life or a spirit-filled community.
Yeah. Yeah, like with verse 10 too, people debate about what is the perfect to come. And so like some people think the New Testament is the perfect to come, right? And the word of God is perfect, right? That's a scripture verse. Like there's no fallacy, no falseness, like it's written perfectly, right? So yeah, but I mean we know also that the word is Jesus. That says that in John 1. Like the word became flesh and manifested himself. Like this is the Bible. Like he is the word, right? So like the perfect to come, I see where people are going at with that, but the perfect that comes, Jesus. Like, who's more perfect than Jesus, right? So, like, when the perfect comes, then that was is in part will be done away. So, like, our us not understanding why stuff happened the way that it happens. Like, people have questions like, why did this happen to me? Why did that happen to me? I had somebody message me on Instagram asking, he served in the military and now he has like a disability. Like I guess he lost a leg or arm or something. He went through he doesn't
No.
talk to his children anymore. Like his life basically just is hell. Like he lists a lot of stuff, man. And I was like, dang. And he was like, I'm still trusting God though, but I don't understand. And that's the thing. Like there's a lot of stuff in this life we just won't know. Like, we're not going to know the day Jesus will come. Paul and Peter and them didn't know the day Jesus will come still. But we'll all figure out in the end, right? When it needs to be told, God will tell us. But like that's the biggest thing. That's how you know you trust and you love the Lord. If you're willing to trust him, man. So like, we don't have all the puzzle pieces together right now. We don't have it all figured out right now. But like when the perfect comes, so when Jesus comes, when we're all in glory, we'll understand why it all happened. And that's a hymnal, man. We'll understand it better by and by. Do you know that song?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's like we are often tossed and driven on the rest of the season's time. And then it just says, we'll understand it better by and by. And they keep on repeating that. It's a really cool hymnal. You should listen to it. Like, but I need to just do videos on hymnals sometime on my YouTube channel. I need to start that playlist.
Oh.
Yeah, I love hymnals, man. But like, yeah. Well, let's keep on going. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. This is a tough thing to wrap your mind around because I think I told you before, Yao and I were going through the book of Job. And it's like the friends and Job are questioning like why God would allow all that to happen. And we really don't get an answer. The only answer we have is like God knows what he's doing. Like Yao even said it, like God said, look at my servant Job, isn't he wonderful? And Yao was saying if he didn't put Job in the spotlight, then he wouldn't be attacked by the devil. But like we never do get an answer. But like the thing we do know is we do need to trust in God, and his love is everlasting, and he's faithful. Like he's faithful and just.
Right.
So like all his plans, everything that points to Jesus is for our salvation,
right.
for his glory. And eventually that plan is going to come to completion, whatever this completion is, whether it's like the rapture or what have you.
Yeah.
But know that when everything else fades, like the love is going to persist.
And that's good, man. Like the love persists. So God's love still persists even in the unknown, even when you don't understand and you don't know. So like one quote I was gonna say is like it says sometimes the experiences you have been through seem like they won't match anything that you will face in the future, but God will not waste one experience that you have had. That goes to Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So like in this Christian life, God's gonna put you in situations you don't understand. Like the disciples, they're a good example. Like there was times where Jesus put them in a situation where they didn't understand. A great example is when Jesus said, let's get on a boat. And they were trying to go to Galilee from a sea, from another city. I can't remember what city. It's like Capernaum or something. I don't remember. But anyways, like he said, let's get on a boat. Oh, what you finna say?
I was thinking it's the city of Capernaum.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, Capernaum. Yeah, Capernaum and then Galilee's, like they're right next to each other. It's like a 5-minute walk or something. But Jesus said, let's get on a boat to go there. And they're like, okay, I guess. Like, but a storm came. And it said at the very beginning of verse of Mark 4:35, like, let's go to the other side. That was Jesus' words to them. Let's go to the other side. So he promised them that we're going to make it to the other side. And he knew a storm was coming. It was God, right? So why put them through a storm when you know a storm's coming? But that's the way God works, man. Like, we don't the more you hold tightly to him, the more you'll understand things. So the misunderstanding will be clearer and your purpose will get clearer when you're closer to him. So the disciples figured out why they had to go through the storm, because God puts us through trials and tribulations and through rock bottoms and just hardships in life, just so we can figure out another name for God. Like in the book of Exodus, like they're learning that God's Jehovah Jireh, God my provider. They're learning that God is Jehovah Nisi and Jehovah and Elohim, like all these different names for God, because God, he does a lot of stuff. He's not limited to one thing. So when you don't go through struggles and pain, like you just won't understand who he really is, right? So this is why, like, everything happens the way that it does. So like, yeah, you just gotta stick with God, and then you'll understand later, you know. That's a scripture verse, man. There's so many scripture verses, man. It's like in the book of John. Jesus said, you know, you don't understand it now, but later on you will. And it's like John 13:9 or something. I'm typing it. I'm just curious where it is. Yeah, 13:7. All right, that was close. John 13:7. Yeah, I hate when I forget where scripture verses are. That's like my pet peeve because
That was pretty close.
I was still wrong though. Like, you know how some people are real nitpicky as believers, man. You say one thing wrong, you mean you're from the devil just because you were two scripture verses off. Like, you false prophet.
Oh, I needed to after the lesson. I need to tell you a funny story though about
Okay.
somebody got the wrong number, and it was a lot more catastrophic than anything you could do.
Okay, I'll definitely I'll remember. I won't forget. All right. Did you have anything else for 9 and 10? Or are you ready for 11 and 12?
No, like yeah, I was kind of the same though. Like like when I see completeness, I think of like the rapture when Jesus comes back for us, because it's Jesus was the word and he is like the embodiment of that word. So his completion will be when he comes back for us. But it's in almost everything in this book. The rest of the book makes me think of back to 1 Corinthians, I think 6, where it talks about our foundation. Like, what are we going to build our foundation on? Something that burns or disappears, or something that lasts? And like, Paul is really trying to emphasize, like, Paul has really talked up the spiritual gifts, like how important they are. But he's also saying that's not evidence of a spiritual life, like the love is. So love is the thing that's going to, like, it's not going to disappear. Like everything else, like, can you imagine, like, things that we're so worried about all the time are going to just like disappear, like kind of like your stocks. Like the stocks fluctuate all the time. So finicky. Like you have to study it all the time to like figure out what the is it, what are the gains, what are the losses. But love is just going to be that foundational thing. Yeah, yeah, I think that's all I had for 9 and 10.
Okay. All right. Here comes 11, man. 11 and 12. 12's coming back to everything we just said. So I can't wait for 12. All right, but verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Man, you know what? To like really bring that scripture verse home, I would just ask everybody, like, what are some things as a kid that you thought you could do right now, but you know you can't do? You know what I mean? Like, that's the greatest way of looking at it. Like, what are some childish ways? What are ways that you're immature that you should be mature in? You know, especially as believers too. Like, that's where things really gets crazy. Like, as a believer, what do you need to be working on that you know you struggle with? That you're really acting like a child, immature, not taking responsibility for it. You need to take ownership of it. You know, so yeah, man. But one example I was gonna give was just like, you know, with a boy. You know, a boy, when you're a kid, you want the most beautiful girl ever, right? It's all about looks to you, and it's probably the same thing for girls too. I don't know what girls look for. I can only speak for men.
I want an ugly girl, so then the boys are in the house all the time. As long as she has a beautiful heart, I'm fine with that. But I want her ugly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you're older, you know the value of the heart, right? So like when you're mature, you know, you can be, we understand now, you can be pretty and be a devil, you can be pretty and be really immature, and just you can be pretty and just not have it all together, just be way off, you know, like by a landslide, you know. So look, yeah, you can go for looks as a kid, but like when you get older, you know, looks just fade. It fades quick. You know, it doesn't last at all. So like, you know, and then even as a kid too, you know, like I didn't experience it, but I can only imagine if I had sex as a kid, Justin. If I had sex as a kid, man, any teenager years, like, boy, Like you could have all the babies in the world just from having sex, and then you don't take responsibility. That's another way of being a kid. Being a kid, not taking responsibility for your actions. So just letting them kids be kids without a dad. That is crazy. So how many grown adults are childish, man, and immature, and that's not Christ-like, man, at all. Like on so many levels, and that's just with that. We ain't even talking about like with money. Like, are you mature with money? Are you acting like a child, or are you acting like an adult? And that's a deep question too, because a child doesn't save. They actually lean on other people to give them money, to depend on them and stuff, when they should just save their money. Invest their money, be responsible, right? But they don't know how to do that. They don't take ownership of that, or working. They want their parents to work for them, or other people. They live off of them, and then they don't take no responsibility. They don't pay no rent. They don't work. They don't do nothing. Like what? Like, and then what's funny too? Like boys do stuff for fun. Like kids, immature people do stuff for fun, but adults, we know that we have to do some stuff we don't like in order to get the rewards that we want in life. So like as believers, this all correlates, man. Like you gotta do that in a worldly sense. Obviously, you gotta do that as believers. Like there's some people you don't want to love, but you have to love. So like the Corinthian church is a prime example, man. You got all these childish things, I got a gift. Ooh, I got a gift. I'm gonna use it. Like, and the greatest example of speaking in tongues, man. Like, we'll talk about it, I think in 1 Corinthians 14, like they went to the synagogue and they were interrupting each other speaking in tongues, or for prophesying even. Like they were just showing off their gift without respecting the flow of the worship service, without recognizing where they were at, like they just were doing it. And it was, some people were offended. Some people couldn't hear what the actual preacher was saying. Like everybody was just showing off their gift and showing off what they could do, which is a kid thing of doing. A kid does that. When a kid gets a gift, they want to show off to their friends, like, look what I got. Oh, my gift better than yours. Let me look at my gift. Like, that I got for Christmas. Or, so we compare. Like that's, and as a believer, like that is so childish, man. You gotta put away childish things. There's times when you want to be childish. There's time when you want to, puff yourself up. There's time when you want to get back at somebody and seek revenge. So you think of evil. You know what I'm saying? Like there's times when you want to argue with other people. So be rude to them because they're rude to you. That's a childish way of living. Like as Christian believers, we put away childish things. Carnal things. That's really what it is. Carnal things, man. Like that's the way the world does stuff. We don't operate like that, man. This is so powerful, man. I love 1 Corinthians 13, man. Do you have anything else with that? With 11?
Yeah, it's like it makes me think of the verse about spiritual milk versus spiritual meat. Like when you grow older, like that's our ultimate goal, is to become more Christ-like. Like, and we're always growing. Anyone who says they've stopped growing, or they're saying they're exactly like Christ, and that's blasphemous.
Right.
So like you have to prepare yourself and like figure out what season of life you're in order to like exercise a spiritual gift, or exercise reaching out to others, or loving others, or figuring out how to love different people. And it's like a constant, like you constantly have to ask the Spirit to be brought into your life in order to do that, because it's not something you do by yourself.
Right.
But I don't know. I just really like this, because it goes back to the analogy you had, is when you're a kid, you want to grow up and you want to do all this stuff that you're not allowed to do, but we don't know why we're not allowed to do them until we're older. And it's just like a really good balance of maturing yourself as a Christian and as a person.
Right. And there's stuff you did as a kid that you can't do it as an adult. There's so much stuff. Like there's so many ways that you acted as a kid that you can't act like as an adult. You got to grow up. Like as Christians, that's what Paul's saying. There's stuff that you did as a baby believer that you can't do as a grown, full-fledged, mature Christian. Like that just defeats the purpose, like of growing up in faith. Like, so man, it's just so much, man. Like, and you know what's funny? I would just venture to say most Christians are childish. Like most Christians are immature and just babies in the faith. That's a great, like Paul even said that, like, and a lot of times in 1 Corinthians, we read that Paul said, I wish I could speak to you as mature Christians, but you're babies. Like
Yeah.
I can't feed you spiritual milk, man. Like, I mean, I can't feed you spiritual meat. I have to give you spiritual milk because, like, you just ain't ready for it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's so powerful, man. And if that's the case, man, like, how are you gonna? Let's just get to the next verse, man. Like, how you gonna know what's fully not in part anymore if you don't move on from like the immature things? But all right, so you done with 11 too? You ready for 12?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as I am known, man. This is my favorite part of the whole entire chapter, man. My favorite. Like, I think about this day and night, man. Like, cause like I was talking with my brother one time and I brought up this verse because he was trying to argue with me about something. And I was like, when it comes to like just me arguing with you is pointless, right? Because we only see stuff from our vantage point. 6 plus 3 equals 9, right? But 5 plus 4 equals 9 too. So like the way you do things is not always the only way to do them. Respect other people's way of thinking. Like, so my reality isn't your reality, and vice versa. We have 2 different perspectives. And that's Paul's whole point in 1 Corinthians. He talked about that in 1 Corinthians 8 through 10. Like, we all have a different conscience. So my conscience ain't your conscience. So what is a sin for me? It's probably not a sin for you. Like, some people can watch women's wrestling and be good. It's just women's wrestling to them. It's just wrestling. No different than men wrestling. For me, it's like watching porn. It's like watching sex. So like for my conscience, I'm weak, you know. But it's not the case for everybody. So for me to go around saying it's of the devil, it doesn't need to happen at all. Like, burn it to hell. So like Paul's whole point is, we only see through a glass darkly. So like whatever your truth is, whatever you think reality is and everything like that, whatever you think life is, you only see through a glass darkly. And that is so powerful because like back in that time period, we talked about in the book of Exodus with the tabernacle, like the laver in the tabernacle was made of metal. It was made of bronze. So bronze, any mirror in that time period, the Egyptians had all mirrors made of metal, right? So like you seen, one thing I used to do as a kid all the time was look at my just face in my metal desk in elementary school. You know how we had the metal desks back in the 90s and 2000? You're like, yeah, it was that. It wasn't metal, but yeah, it was all metal, I think. But anyways, we had that silver part, right? The silver metal part on our desk. So I always see my face and my figure. I'm like, ooh, woo, like. But I could never see myself. Like, I could never pop a zit if I had one. Like, because I was too disproportional. I was all over the place. Like, yeah, like. I couldn't see anything. And that's Paul was in their time period. That's how it was looking in the mirror. They didn't have the mirrors that we had. They had mirrors that made themselves look disfigured and disproportional and stuff. So they couldn't see face to face. And Paul's whole point is like one day when the perfect comes, when Jesus comes, when we're in glory, when everything makes sense, because Jesus is with us, making everything make sense. Like, then we'll see through a glass darkly. We'll be able to see everything. All the truths of the world, all the confusion, all the uncertainty, all the misunderstandings, we'll see it all for what it is. Like the real history of Black people. I don't know the history of Black people. People lie all the time about our history. I don't know where I come from, but I know the truth. Are we the Israelites or not? Like, I don't know anything. Like, so, but I'll know then, right? I'll know everything then. So, yeah, I love that part, man.
Yeah, it makes me think of like when God was showing himself to Moses, like God's image was too powerful for Moses to see, that he had to like see the aftermath or the trail of God to see his presence, like because he couldn't see God full on. But like one day we'll actually be able to like be with God, see him fully, like see his image. There's some people who say there's a contradiction in the Bible by saying no one has seen the face of God, but then they say that, oh, but it says in this verse that someone did see the face of God. But that's not a contradiction. It's just like we're incapable of seeing the fullness of God at this moment.
Right.
Just like how weak we are. But like, and that's fine. Like still everything as long as we see that things point to God, as long as we see the effects of God, like even if we can't see the wind, as long as we feel it or see its effects, like that's the important part.
Yeah.
One day we'll be able to see God fully. One day we'll have like all the answers and figure out if we acted right or if we acted wrong. But for now we have to look through a distorted mirror right now. But like as long as we trust in God, like it should be fine.
Right. And you know what's funny? That's the scripture verse, man. Hebrews 11 verse 1. I want to read it because I never say it like it is. But in Hebrews 11 verse 1, it says, now faith is assurance of, now faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see, right? So you're not having faith in God if you could see the miracle that you want to see. Like you're not having faith in God if you knew the whole entire future and what's going to happen and how things will play out. Like, first of all, that'd be too much for all of us. Like, if you knew the exact, I can only imagine if I knew the exact moment I would die, I would be counting it down. Like, I'm closer. Yeah, like I wouldn't be living in the day. Like, it would be hard to live for the day, and enjoy the day. Well, that's just one component. Just imagine you knew who you're gonna marry. Like, what would you learn? Like, you would learn nothing. Like, I honestly, I would have loved that, but that's the only exception to like knowing the future. But like, yeah, but still, like some stuff's just too much for you to bear. Like, you knew if you're gonna be poor for the rest of your life, what's the point of trying? Like, it's just gonna be poor. Like, so like that's what faith is. Faith is believing things hoped for. It's believing in the impossible. Trusting God regardless of your circumstance and your situation. That's the whole point of this Christian life. That's the whole point of being a child of God. We just trust in God. And that's what God's just trying to convey for us, man. So like, whether you see him face to face or not, you love him still. You trust in him still. You still have your hope in him, man. And that's Paul's whole point, man. Man, it's just all about trusting in God and living that way, regardless of, everybody doing something different. Everybody's in a different race. All the misunderstandings and uncertainties, man, you still choose to love God. Love is a choice, man. Like, so yeah, this part is so powerful on so many levels, man. Like, I love the Bible, man. Like, I love that verse. I've been dying to say all that for so long. And I still ain't do it justice. Did you have anything else with 12? Or are you ready for 13? I don't have much for 13, man.
No, that's no. Well, yeah, like I'm glad for like seeing our distorted image, because for me, what spoke out for 12 was like it went back to that completeness that's supposed to be coming, and it makes me think of one day like we'll see like a complete reflection of God. So I like that we both kind of had different viewpoints on that one. But no, I didn't have anything else for 12.
Okay. All right. So for 13, and now abideth faith, hope, and love. These three, but the greatest of these is love. Yeah, I wish I would have studied that verse, man. I know it's a lot with it, but I can only say what I think it's saying. But yeah, like with faith and hope, like we just talked about that. Like Paul, through this whole part that we just read, 9 through 12, this is all stuff we hope for, and all stuff. This is stuff we're putting our faith in. So, what would be the point of faith and hope in glory, in heaven? It would have no point at all. Like, because like we already put our faith in. Faith is believing things that you don't see. It's hoping in things that hasn't happened yet. That's faith. Hope is the same thing. It's no different than faith, really. Like, but you're hoping for the best. It's not. It's awful right now, but you hope for the best. So, like in glory, when the perfect comes, like, what would be the point of faith and hope? The hope's already there. The person you have faith in is right there. You see him. Like, Jesus is right there. He ain't going nowhere. So like when the perfect comes, faith and hope, prophecies, tongues, knowledge, all that stuff's gonna fade away. Like, what's gonna be here forever is love. That's why love's the greatest. And that's why if it's the greatest, we're gonna be doing it for all eternity, for forever. We're called to do it here on this earth when we don't see it, when we don't understand it, when we can't put our finger on why to do it. This is the most important time to do it because love is everything. And God is love. Like, so like that verse right there, it just puts a exclamation point on everything Paul was saying about love, you know, like if you don't do this stuff with love, like what's the point of your life here on this earth as a believer? Like you have a higher call of God to show love to people who don't deserve it, to people who to have unconditional, what's it called? Unconditional love. You know, for people who, you know, don't have love for you. Like just to show how God works, because that's what God did for you, man. Love is the greatest thing. And God is love. So God is the greatest thing. So we're called to be God-like creatures, Christ-like creatures. Jesus to somebody else, you know, be the sermon that the pastor's preaching, even though people don't go to church, you know, be the show the love that God has for us. So like, yeah, all that stuff, man. So I'm done with 13, man.
Well, I like how faith and hope are almost human qualities that we have to have.
Mm-hmm.
But love is like, I don't think God needs faith and hope. Like, he doesn't have to have faith in himself. He's God. He knows who he is. He is the I am.
Right.
But faith and hope are human characteristics, and they almost all three of them also seem to pertain to time, is what I noticed. Like, faith is something that you have now. You have faith in God. You have faith that he will do good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Hope is for things yet to be seen. It's for the future. It's for how will things play out. But love, this is why love, I think, is the greatest, because love is above all that. It's eternal. It encompasses everything.
Yeah.
It emphasizes everything that it encircles and it endues. It's like it transcends time. While faith and hope are very time based, in my opinion, love is something that, as we've said so many times already, an everlasting concept.
Dang, man. That is you just killed it, man. That's a mic drop. We're done. I'm not doing 4 through 8 no more. I mean, yeah, I'm not doing 4 through 7. I'm gonna wait. We're doing a whole different study on 4 through 8. That's a mic drop, bro. We're done. Did you have anything else?
No, that's all I had for 13.
I was trying to pull out stuff for 13, man. You just killed it. I'm done, bro. That was great, man. Yeah, I'm turning off the recording.
Because I always think about time, like the dimension, like the dimensions of time and space are like always on my mind, and like I always think, man, how does God see things? Because lots of people will say, like, we see things in 3 dimensions, but it's people will ask, what does God see? Does he see in like 4 dimensions or 5 dimensions? Or there's this theory that he can see in 11 dimensions. But like for him, like time is like a place for him. Like how we can move left and right or straight and forward through space, like God can do that with time. So that's always like on my mind. So love just seemed like that thing that transcends like our puny little minds. And that might be why it's so hard to understand, because like we can't get that full capacity of what love actually is.
Yeah.
But faith and hope we can have. Love we can also have. It's just hard for us to like feel ourselves with it.
Dang. You got anything else for 13? You can just keep on going, man.
No, I'm good.
Just keep on going, bro. All right. So I want to do 4 through 8 again for another study. Is that cool?
Yeah, of course. Okay. I'll join you.
All right, man. Appreciate the study, bro. I'm turning off the recording, man.